Anyway, I'm really hoping that Blue.Green.Fusion will make public support and demand for affordable, community-wide access to renewable energy clear to the public policy gatekeepers. And I say that, and it sounds pretty bad, but I do think that we have to, ask the hard question whether the fact that the technology does exist, that the research has been proven, and there is labor available, trained and capable of making the installations, what is the major barrier to renewable energy access? And so, well, maybe we'll figure that one out. But anyway, my interest in renewable energy began with coursework in political science, biology at the undergraduate level, and then public policy and public administration at the graduate level. I took a lot of coursework in those areas. However, I got my graduate degree in library science, which means I was capable of doing a large amount of research on a large amount of subjects. And over the years, my interest began to focus on renewable energy. And so some recent studies and research that I've done have been applied to various corporations who were doing their own projects that wanted to research the field and figure out how they can do either a 90-degree turn or a 180-degree turn into focusing their energy and manpower and market share penetration on renewable energy. And so I participated in that on a research level and a written level, providing press releases, plans, website content, writing, documenting steps to take, but not quite getting to the point where I put on a hard hat and carried a solar panel on my back and installed it. But I did research different methods and different companies and the market to see what other companies were doing. And it was very enjoyable. I did this in the Chicago area, and I went so far as to get certification for green business through the Chicago Center for Green Technology, which I still feel is the beginning of knowledge, not the ending. And so I'm ever learning from different people. And I'm really hoping that I learn from the public as the public participates in the discussion. I'm also an Iowa native. I've concentrated a lot of my career on, like I said, the written word, and that's through libraries and bookstores and publishing houses. And I have my own publishing company, which is McQueen Press. And McQueen Press is what released Solaris Sun, and hopefully which will release the next iteration of the renewable energy literary genre. It's as yet untitled, or I do have a title, but I'm not prepared to share it, but it will deal with wind energy. I've got other works available on Amazon. That's Kenzie, Imaginarium, The Angel and the Lion, Writer in the Library, and of course Solaris Sun. And I can even share the basic concept of that fictional work, as Dallas and Dynasty showcase the wealth and the sex and the intrigue and power that drove the oil industry. So Solaris Sun reveals the tumultuous world behind solar and wind. And so basically I found a JR character to drive the story and then set up a protagonist to slow him down. But basically I wrote that book to humanize the renewable energy industry. Right now, I feel that there are a sizable number of nonfiction works written on renewable energy, documenting procedures and processes and policies. But I wanted to actually find a story behind the renewable energy world and make it suspenseful and very interesting and slick and sophisticated, just to see who were the people involved with renewable energy. How did they interact with each other? with their families, with their workplaces, out in the field with the technology itself, and should somehow, while they're, the story and the characters are the main component of any fictional work, I also managed to squeeze the technology in there too, and hopefully it'll balance out to where someone who's not familiar with renewable energy could read Solaris Sun and then not be entertained by the story or shocked and amazed and, I don't know, disgusted. And then maybe learn about the technology as well, just to bring it out of that rare air with that sun shining bright so far away from us and the wind blowing, over our heads. Just bring it down to earth and make it more accessible to everyone. Get it out of the policy manuals and the handbooks and the documents and the government publications, and just make it something you might read on the airplane or in your solar-powered car. I don't know. All right, so there are, of course, other renewable energy sources besides solar. You've got fuel cells, you've got, besides wind, you've got, solar, you've got fuel cells, you've got biofuels, and then biomass as well. And particularly here in Iowa, biofuels such as, ethanol is more than just a notion. I chose to focus on solar and wind since people are very familiar with those. And then in Iowa, of course, wind is such a large component in renewable energy. But maybe by the third book, we'll explore some others, or hopefully my characters won't have killed each other off by then. So anyway, I've been researching on quite a bit lately for the next book, and I went so far as to find out the history behind wind. Right now, we look at the windmills, and those of us who live in Iowa and have driven around on the western portion up to Minnesota, Minneapolis, and maybe into South Dakota, we see those windmills, and they look so high-tech, and maybe even watching a movie created in California, in the Altamont Pass, you see like the windmills spinning and great oceans of whirlybirds going around, and look very high-tech, but windmills have been around since the ancient times. They're not a new technology, although there's been a revival of interest in them lately. But going back as far as the Babylonian Emperor Hammurabi, there's written documentation that he planned to use windmills for irrigation as far back as the 20th century BC. And so they've been around quite a lot. And then there's also Hero of Alexandria, who described windmills in his writings, and he wanted that windmill to be used to play an organ. Then you've got those windmills that were created to grind grain, either wheat or corn, and then pump water. And so as far back as agriculture goes, and irrigation goes, they used the windmills for that, to bring water to where it was not accessible before. And during the Crusades, windmills gravitated from the Middle East to the European peninsula. And so the Crusades made that happen. There's just amplified of knowledge about technology and science, and windmills got caught in that wave of crusaders returning back to Europe and bringing their knowledge of windmill technology. So Holland, of course, made great use of windmills for flood control. If not for windmills, Holland would be a marsh. It would be underwater, especially by now with global warming. But windmills made it possible for the Netherlands to exist.